Hi family, thanks for watching. So for those of you who have watched our channel for a while, know that we've already done several of these blueberry mead recipes for YouTube. We did our first mead video on like the whole blueberry process, and then we also did another one about backsweetening and using pasteurization. The reasons for that is because we are learning to experiment, and we kind of use this recipe because we know we absolutely love it and won't be too disappointed if we have too much of it. In the past, we've always done just 1 gallon carboys, mainly because we were gifted one in the beginning and that's just what we had. But recently we went and bought ourselves as a Christmas present the 5 gallon wide mouth, but we only bought one, and as soon as we got it and tried making something for it, we realized the flaw in our thinking. So what we decided to do to test out this new 5 gallon wide mouth carboy was to work with our old blueberry recipe and try to do it in a way that we could compare the different types of backsweetening methods. So in this video, I'll still go over the recipe that we used or that we've been using, but I will also go over the process that we kind of did, do a quick review of like the flavors and the equipment that we used, do like a comparison essentially, and then I'll give my ultimate verdict about which method is the superior method. So if you watched our last Mead video, you'll know that I changed the format up a little bit, and I'm kind of continuing with that for this video as well. Basically, we recorded everything in real time, but we didn't do the whole sitting in front of the camera together with my husband and I. And I just want to say real quick before I get too far into the video, thank you everybody who is subscribed. Obviously, most of you that follow us are family and friends, which we are so grateful for. Some of you are from around the world, which is pretty cool. But we're hoping to get to 500 this year. So if you have a moment, please hit the subscribe button and help us reach those numbers. So in this video, we're gonna do an experiment with our blueberry lemon mead recipe that we always use. This is a recipe we've used multiple times. Originally, we were doing this recipe over and over again because we were trying to get it to actually work. And basically over the years, we've kind of perfected it. And then we challenged ourselves to try to deliberately then repeat it, which was in of itself a bit of an accomplishment. And so now it's just our go-to recipe when we want to try and experiment with different techniques or different equipment, because we more or less know what our results should be. We did use our own late harvest, and I mean super late, probably too late harvest honey this year for this. We've basically just been tapping into this large bucket, but that is our late 2024 autumn harvest honey. Blueberries, we have a couple blueberry bushes, but they don't really produce enough. The blueberries that we end up using are just your standard commercial frozen blueberries. If you're using fresh blueberries for this recipe, you definitely want them to kind of start breaking down. I know when you're making jam, pectin's usually an insert that people use, or you can freeze them like we did, and that usually helps them already start down their breakdown process. As the yeast is activating and doing its thing, can pull in more of that flavor. So after adding in all the ingredients and then stirring everything together, in fact, because the 5 gallon was so heavy, we ended up just kind of like putting it down on the ground and finished stirring the honey in and mixing up the must on the floor. But basically, we aimed to go for 4 gallons instead of the full 5 because we were worried at the time that we would have a lot of liquid left over and it wouldn't divide evenly. Little did we know that was the exact opposite problem we had, but I'll get to that in a second. So then yes, so now we'll go into the process that we used. So our first step was to just let the must settle in the 5 gallon carboy. Our plan was to basically split it 4 ways. We were going to have the first one be pasteurization, the second one being backsweetening via potassium sorbate or chemical, and the third one be backsweetening in the secondary, which means just adding more honey in the secondary phase. And then the fourth, I mean, because I can count right, is just going to be the control, essentially. In hindsight, we had a missed opportunity. We should have had one just where we front load the honey in the beginning, just maybe like 10 gallons of honey and just seeing what happened for that. So I'll break everybody into their individual processes. So for our backsweetening pasteurization method, we started after the primary. We let it sit for another 2 weeks and then put it into the secondary, where we went ahead and did our usual of pasteurizing and adding honey. And to give you the specifics of that process, we actually do have a video on that that goes step by step and clarifies how that all happens. But one of the critical steps we've learned in the past from doing these multiple experiments is that after you've pasteurized, it's really critical to let your mead settle for like a week or two, because adding the new honey is going to introduce more muck and garbage that's going to settle to the bottom, and you're definitely going to want to re-rack that. And then we added sparkleoid. I just recently discovered sparkleoid because I was trying to use it last year to recover a mead that we had accidentally destroyed. It didn't work for that purpose, but we have really fallen in love with sparkleoid. And the sparkleoid is just like a nice to have. But we really like the fact that it makes the meads look so clear and beautiful. Like when you put the sparkleoid in and it's kind of like backlit, you can almost see just like pulling down all the little remnants of garbage that is in your mead. And because we give a lot of ours away, it's not as embarrassing when it's a little clearer. So then after the sparkleoid had a chance to sit for about a week, we went ahead and bottled the pasteurized process of that. Now, the second method that we had was the potassium sorbate, as I mentioned. Previously, someone commented in our channel that some people are allergic to this process, which is why maybe they prefer the pasteurization. Our biggest thinking was we wanted to compare if the pasteurization really changes the flavor, or if like the potassium sorbate truly is a superior method. Basically, with the potassium sorbate, the technique is to start off the same like you do with the pasteurization version, where you let it sit in the primary, then you let it sit in secondary for a time, and then after about 2 weeks or to a month of sitting in secondary, you re-rack it. But this time you just put like a dash of the potassium sorbate in the new batch. You let that sit for at least 24 hours, and then you add in the honey. And then we let that settle again as well, because same concept with the pasteurization, we assumed that there would be a lot of muck from adding new debris and honey into it. And then after that, we re-racked again, added sparkleoid to let it clarify, and then re-racked to bottle. Now with the secondary, it was a little bit different in the sense that it did its primary in the 5-gallon phase like the other two, but when we went into the secondary phase, instead of just letting it sit there for a little time, we added more honey in. And we added in about a pound of honey for every single one of these stages. And after it sat in its secondary phase with the added honey, we then re-racked it again and added the sparkleoid, let that settle for a little bit, and then bottled it. So for our control, in most cases, we probably would have just re-racked it after the primary and then put the sparkleoid in the secondary and then re-racked it, or then bottled it. The one thing that we did not anticipate with the 5-gallon carboy is you always get like about an inch or two of waste with the gallon ones of the yeast and all the other crud that has fallen to the bottom. But with a 5-gallon, because the surface area is a lot larger than a gallon carboy, even though it was same amount of inches, it was volume-wise was significantly more, which we didn't calculate for. So unfortunately, more of the must was wasted than we initially had prepared for, and we barely had enough for the control. We were scraping out at the bottom of the muck with the most disgusting cloudy garbage that we would have under any other circumstance thrown away. And honestly, I feel like that's gonna throw off the final results somewhat, but because this was so gross and so full of muck, we actually re-racked it the same amount of times as all the others. So we re-racked into the secondary stage, let it sit for a month, re-racked it into a tertiary phase, added the sparkleoid, and then did that again, so letting it all settle. I didn't bother with bottling it because I was only going to have it for this test. So it's sitting over there, and at the end I'll give it a go and see if all of that re-racking and sparkleoid made it decent. I don't know. Okay, so just to give a quick review of equipment that we use, this 5-gallon carboy carboy that we used, we went with a wide mouth. It was definitely more expensive than like your good old-fashioned regular carboys, but one thing we've learned from our gallon carboys is that they are really difficult to clean. So if you are thinking about making bigger batches because you love the recipes that you've got and you just find yourself going through them really quick, if you get yourself a 5-gallon, definitely get yourself the wide mouth at minimum. Now, we've been told you can use just like plastic bucket, drill a hole into one of these lids with those stoppers, but you should only do that for the primary stage. For the secondaries and the third and tertiary stages, most definitely you want it to be glass. One more toy that we got ourselves during this whole process was a mini kegger. And then in an ideal world, you can fit it in your refrigerator and have nice chilled carbonized mead to enjoy. I will have to do a later video reviewing the kegger and how it works. So of course, what most of you care about is the taste review. So my husband and I already tried these a month ago, 2 months ago. And we're already like just super happy with the results. And we tried to kind of do the old format like we would, where we would talk to the camera and tell the camera what we were thinking and tasting and smelling. But of course we were doing it in the middle of the day while our child and dog were just doing their thing. So the audio on that is garbage. But we're gonna start with the pasteurization. Yeah, if you are a fan of like a sweet wine or like a dessert wine or even port, this is like a $40 bottle of port essentially. It's got a nice thickness to it. I think the alcohol content on this is 12%. It's got a lot of sugars in it still, and it's just really lovely. On these hot days, we will chill it and just kind of go nuts. So now here was my real question, which was comparing the pasteurization to the potassium sorbate. You can already tell just from looking at these bottles that the pasteurization one is darker than the potassium sorbate one. Smells similar. I'm probably the worst person to be giving you the differences between the two. There is a mild taste difference. I'm sure brewmasters could specify and hone in on what that difference is. But if you're just a casual drinker like we are, and you're just enjoying these to share with family and friends, I can't tell the difference between the two. There's definitely a look difference. There is a sweetness to this one that's a little smoother. There's a little bit more tartness. The sugars stay in your mouth a little bit longer. They're both really good. I know, I'm not helpful. I think there's pros and cons to each. Obviously, the secondary doesn't require any more special equipment or chemicals. Doing it in secondary is the safest way to do it because you don't have to worry about your bottles blowing up for any reason. Now the secondary, it's a little more flat. Pasteurization, the way I feel like, is the sugars, you get this feeling that it kind of goes down after you're drinking it. Whereas the potassium sorbate kind of gets a feeling of going up. And then you have the secondary, which is basically like the flat. One thing I didn't anticipate when I was trying to open the control is that the lid had essentially like fused with the ring that seals it, and it wouldn't budge. I had shaken up everything that was in there already, and I basically had to break it open. It's actually fairly clear. It's not too bad compared to the others. It's not bad. Heck, drink the others and then finish off with this and you won't be able to tell the difference. My final verdict is don't listen to me about what's the best way to do it. Figure it out for yourself. I know that's a bit of a cop-out. They're basically all smooth and they are all good. Look at me, I look ridiculous. Thank you for watching this video. If you haven't already, again, please subscribe. We're hoping to hit that 500 mark. Thank you so much for watching. Bye, take care.